Hello, everyone. Welcome to the seventh Mindmakers podcast. Today, we have a lot of interesting topics to talk about. We're going to talk about the union budget in India, the railway budget, and also delve into the Jammu and Kashmir government formation. There should be a swearing-in ceremony tomorrow for Mufti Muhammad Sayyid to be the CM of Jammu and Kashmir. This is Adit Kapadia, and with me I have, as usual, Pramod Kumar Buravalli and Sunanda Vashisht. How are you guys?
Good. How are you, Adit?
Pretty good. And we're honored to have Dr. H.S. Prahlada from our Board of Advisors join us as a guest today for the special podcast on the union budget.
Thank you. It seems the union budget dragged him to the podcast.
Yes. I hope there are more of these which forces him to come behind the mic. So we're looking forward to a very lively discussion on the union budget. So I would like to start.
But there is something about budget and Indians.
Right.
There is something about this.
We are overtly obsessed about it.
We are neurotic about budgets. Everybody is.
No, but at least they moved on from discussing traffic jams to budgets now. So in the TV
No,
studios.
because we are a saving culture, we have to continuously look
Saving
at
or a savant culture?
No, saving culture, which has, even from a government perspective, constant checks and balances in terms of how much is being spent by the government and by
But
the
my
private
earliest
individual.
memory of budget is on Doordarshan, black and white TV, and the person, the announcer there saying the toothpaste will cost more and the toothbrush will cost less, and the color TV will cost more and
but
cars will cost less, or something like that.
Did they used to say toothpaste or tabhi Colgate hi bolte the?
Everything was Colgate. Everything was Colgate.
We Indians love.
Sibaka and Binaka.
No, but from there we've moved on to 24/7 news studios giving 24/7 coverages of the budget. This week was a very odd week for news. You had news channels flocking to cover Anna Hazare, who was opposing for the LAB being.
And they were using the footage from 2011.
Were they?
Yeah.
I haven't watched as much news as you have, Sunanda.
No, they were using the footage of 2011 and juxtaposing it and somehow hoping that 2011 comes back again, which is not going to happen. But
no, but I heard ki Kisan Virodhi, anti-farmer. He didn't say what was anti-farmer.
That's the rhetoric.
And for that I had to suffer through 4 Anna Hazare interviews to find out what is anti-farmer. I became anti-Anna Hazare after those 4 interviews.
Did you find out what Jan Lokpal was after the entire thing?
What is Jan Lokpal? There is no mention of Jan Lokpal.
Thank you very much. After all that, we don't know what Jan Lokpal is.
So I don't know. 3 years later, when Anna Hazare is probably agitating again, we might be asking the same about land acquisition bill. What do you reckon?
I think Arun Jaitley put a fiery defense of the kind of back and forth that happened between the BJP and the Congress the past 4 years, even when the BJP was in opposition, and then also conceding that he had erred at the consent that was given at that point in time and the exemptions that were being sought. And eventually, when they looked at the fine print, they tried to revise it to the best possible extent. There, again, Prime Minister Modi also came to the house and then talked about.
I think they set the stage for budget spectacularly. First,
not even
Mr.
budget
Jaitley's speech, and then
I'm going
one
to
of the finest moments of Lok Sabha with Prime Minister Modi's speech.
I'm going to extrapolate that to the whole budget session. How the budget session will be conducted. I mean, that was a phenomenal speech. Brought back memories of Atalji. Although their styles are completely different. The only way it brought back is now you finally had a prime minister who was assertive in the Lok Sabha. You did not have.
But there was another interesting part when he did that quip on Manrega.
I just wish I'd play that video over and over again.
My point was, the first thought that came to my mind was, do we have first right of center prime minister sitting in the parliament? Because even Atalji was not your right of center that way when it came to economics.
He did say he will never remove Narega though.
I know. So, and that is actually, when we talk about the budget, we'll talk about they actually
I hope they
allotted a lot of money.
Exactly. But if that is being used to, he had alluded to how the things in Narega would be used to boost the manufacturing sector later and so forth. But we can talk about that later.
But my point is that this is the first right of center prime minister who's dil se right of center.
So you think Narasimha Rao was not right of center?
He had not that kind of opportunity at that point in time,
Yeah.
to be really right.
Right
He
of
could have
center.
been
He
the
could have
best
been.
right of center prime
Absolutely.
minister, but
Yeah, but see,
resources,
all of them
it all,
had these. They had all emerged or were still in the Nehruvian economics. It was very difficult for them to break free. So, but Mr. Modi is the first prime minister whose economics is only right of
The
center.
first anti-Nehru.
No.
No, it is all dependent on the resources, the day and age
Right.
you live in, and the kind of population. When you talk about demographic dividend, majority of the young
Yeah,
people who
right-
are educated,
right place
they
and
want to
right
take
time
yeah
also.
take risks. They want to start their own businesses. They
Atalji's time
they
was
don't want to
probably
be.
not the time to say all that. Things change, time moves
No,
on.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wrong to compare anything. I mean, the word I was looking for was the situation
Yeah.
at that point of time was different in Atalji's time and Manmohan Singh's time.
Most
And
of them
so-
took decisions based on what the skill sets of the population were, what were they currently engaged in, what was the world dynamics. If the
Yeah.
Indian economy becomes part of the world dynamic, would we be able to compete? Now, I think in that
All
part,
of them were remarkable politicians, though. Atalji, Narasimha Rao,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely. Narendra
now
Modi.
Narendra Modi. Remarkable politicians. No one can deny
and
that.
I wrote a piece on Reserve Bank of India and how the kind of autonomy that should have been given to RBI only started with the Narasimha Rao days. When
That's true.
Y.V. Reddy, the then RBI governor, wrote a very, I mean, he actually did a seminar, I think 7 or 8 years ago, and I read that at that point when he talked about what kind of, not really from a constitution perspective, but the level and ease at which RBI operated under Narasimha Rao was the best benchmark.
And I figure you're writing part two. I think Bimal Jalan was the governor during Narasimha Rao's time as well.
Yeah, they were very good.
And Bimal Jalan made some interesting comments before the budget. And I mean, I would look forward to hearing what he has to say about the
But
budget
it was
as well.
really a Reagan moment in
Yeah.
Prime Minister Modi and in the history of India where a
Let's
Prime
not
Minister
compare
stand
him
up-
with Ronald
No,
Reagan.
no,
Come
I'm not
on.
comparing anybody, but I said that moment because I
Yeah.
think Ronald Reagan was the last president of United States who actually had the courage to tell Americans that success of welfare should be measured by how many people leave welfare and not come into welfare. So that moment actually, when telling people that मनरेगा is actually कांग्रेस की विफलताओं का स्मारक है, that was that Reagan moment, that do not measure your success by the kind of welfare you have.
But it's going to take a long time for us to move from a welfare
a long
state to
time,
that.
a long
There are
No, it
some
will continue to be a welfare state, but a subsidy state is what you're talking about.
Right.
I think that is what you are inferring, in which Manrega, let's say for example, when the dig that was taken is that they keep digging. That is all they keep doing. I think what Modi and in his common sense will want to do is to utilize that time in a better fashion, maybe towards road building, towards probably getting them some skills that can be used at the rural and the semi-rural areas itself.
It was a
I think
dig on Congress economics and Senomics that
No, but
you have not given opportunities.
Congress economics is a very weird phrase also, because here we were praising parts of tenets of Narasimha Rao's policy.
Well,
But-
Congress economics, no, I should say Sonianomics.
Yeah, what I call it is NSE-nomics.
Yeah.
This was all these National Advisory Council people,
Because last 10 years
as we
has
joke,
been very
the
difficult.
socialists who like $200 coffees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, absolute nonsense. But let's see what happens. We had a fantastic podcast actually last week on Amartya Sen and the Nalanda University. Senomics brings back memories of that podcast.
I know India is a country where Samajwadi politicians have $1 million weddings. So socialists have $200 coffees. We are a wonderful country.
Magnificent.
They believe in public investment in India, but they have a lot of private investments outside of India. That is the greatest socialist.
But
that
then
can come
the
from
question
India.
is, in which public do they invest their
No.
money? When you talk about public
you can make
investment,
money off of other people.
Exactly.
अपने लोगों के पास नहीं जाना.
अपने लोगों के पास नहीं जाना. सही है. No, but on that note, I think let's explore the budget a little more specifically, and let's talk about issues like infrastructure, agriculture, and let's see what we all have to say. So in the next part, let's take that up. So we had a pretty interesting budget presented by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. We're all having multiple views on it. Actually, before the podcast, this will be interesting to tell the viewers. We had a really fiery debate.
Listeners.
The listeners. Yes, the listeners. We had a fiery debate on the budget. There were parts of it where most of us were in affirmative, but there were parts where we disagreed on what approach should have been taken as well. So, just wanted to.
My view is that, dream budget isn't a very good term to use because of the connotations, and our listeners will remember.
No, and also whose dream was it?
Whose dream it was. So it isn't, quote unquote, a dream budget for economic right in India. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. But what I do think that, considering where we came from, this is a sensible, pragmatic budget. This is the only thing that could have been done in the present circumstances. People forget where we have come from. People forget what we was inherited by this government. So in light of that, I think Finance Minister Jaitley did a wonderful job. I think my favorite couple of things I will say, and before others can jump in, is corporate tax reduced from 30% to 25%. I think that is a huge incentive to the corporate sector. And also my favorite part also is that there is a major shift in financial power now from center to states. So the states get more money, states get the share of more money. I think that is being true to federalism, and that is being true to what Narendra Modi had promised before elections. So that's one point. This is a very growth-oriented budget. There is no doubt that this government wants to grow. They have one eye on reform and one eye on growth.
Actually,
they have huge push on infrastructure because they feel that the growth can only happen because of infrastructure. The push in infrastructure is not coming from the private sector. They are now willing to have the government do the spending for the infrastructure because they believe that is only going to help the growth. So in that sense, they have prepared a budget that will sort of help this.
No, but this is the thing I have. The infrastructure you said are you in favor of a public-private model, the PPP model?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think that this was a failure of the PPP model, that the government had to step in?
To some extent, yes.
Because it was not clear if it was a 50-50 PPP, who was the majority risk taker and who was the person who
not
was...
Just that.
Also, we didn't have time to try out PPP model for this long, and we don't have time to wait for it to take off.
I don't know.
I think the government has to jump in.
I think more than anything, I think they also jumped in also because, let's face it, there was skepticism amongst the private sector about investments because of the litigations, the problems faced,
the tax structure, everything.
Not the tax structure. And then, all of us actually agree that he should have done something about retrospective taxation.
Yeah.
The just mention was not, I was hoping that some concrete steps, because let's face it, there was an abysmal law. The circumstances why it was implemented or not, that could be a thing of debate.
But he has deferred it. He hasn't.
He has deferred it.
No, it is going through.
But don't you believe it should be abolished?
Right now? No, it is going through arbitration. It can't be abolished right now because the current president of
India.
India
Has deferred it till 2000.
Was responsible for that.
So what?
Right now, what is going to happen is it has a very big.
So are you going to wait till 2017?
No, it has a big tie-in to the 2G scam. There are several national security implications to that. It was not done.
I agree with all that.
I don't think that this government wants to
See, my
continue
question
with
is not that. My question was, are we on unanimity that it's an abysmal law?
It is, and the government
Moving
agrees,
forward,
but they cannot do anything about it.
Moving forward, I'm talking.
Yes.
We are talking in 2015. Let's not stake in the retrospective taxation has no business. What are you telling the people who want to invest in your country?
No, it's a terrible law.
And coming from the background, I'm really happy that infrastructure has been such a top priority of the government. But I would also like to see where there are like how you have in US, there are a lot of state associations. Everything should not be just on NHAI and nationalized. Even this should be federalized.
The central government has no business building roads in a small village. That's true.
Exactly. So I mean that's another thing. But I mean, at least the first step is good. Let's see how that comes out. And which brings me, this we've talked about the infrastructure and that push. But when I was reading through, say, the top 10 highlights or something, we didn't find a lot of news about agriculture and stuff. And Dr. Prahlada here, he takes an interest in the agricultural side reforms. So I wanted his perspective on that.
And he was involved in crop insurance. He was involved in the cattle industry for a while.
Yeah.
So
I take exception to the budget in respect of making no worthwhile mention, if any, I don't know, of agriculture being inclusive. It was looking as though 15% and 60% kind of statistics they were showing is unwarranted. For a country like India, where so much of population lives in the rural areas, 70% still, and the people have to be fed through the medium of agriculture.
Do you feel this government and this budget is not focused on agriculture at the moment?
Theoretically and technically speaking, somewhere here and there, Modi keeps mentioning, but I think he forgets most often.
No.
That it should be a continuous phenomenon.
no, but in general, you are wanting agriculture to be much more profitable so that this bane of MSP, which is what determines how much a farmer should be making, and that is what was alleviated. I think they talked about an agricultural kind of a national level market where they can have an alternate to the local market, and perhaps also open it up so that they can sell it outside of India as well. Is that what you are suggesting in terms of keeping that huge population engaged in better agriculture?
Yes.
Okay.
I said, I mean to say that not only agriculture, but also allied activities like animal husbandry, be it green revolution, white revolution, so many revolutions have been there. That should be sustained. That should not be neglected, because that is only going to give us the food and ability to stand in a war for a long time. The
I
people.
think this is a major point, major contentious point right now. I think the government at the moment, and what I have a feeling, what Mr. Jaitley feels, that there are people who are involved in agriculture sector who do not necessarily want to be there because it's not paying them as much as they would like to. Mr. Jaitley's point is that these people should be gotten out of the farms, gotten out of the agriculture sector, and probably pushed into manufacturing, pushed into other sectors. Now, there can be a debate about that. Should we get the agriculture sector? Is our agriculture sector so big that we cannot have the entire population move?
But the miscalculation there is that...
And is there any study done to find out how many percent are people? This just by anecdotal evidence, you cannot formulate a policy that you are going to take certain amount of agriculture, people employed in agriculture and throw them in manufacturing sector. I sympathize with what Mr. Jaitley said, and I share his position that the agriculture sector needs to be reformed. But whether that reform is only through manufacturing sector, I'm not so sure about that.
The manufacturing sector is no replacement, no answer for agriculture employment.
Right.
Agriculture is not as very confined or what to call very small defined world. Agriculture is a very huge world for a country like India, where literacy has its own problem. People are not educated. People are ladies are not employed. More than 50% of agriculture operations are done by the ladies.
Yeah.
So they are gainfully employed there.
Right.
They draw respect
Right.
because of being in agriculture. So it is not only the ladies, women folk, it is not only the men folk. A lot of disabled people are there who cannot be employed. But you go and see in a village, they are all having their food. They're not given by the government, but by the landlords.
I think this is a very important point that has come about, and people haven't talked about it as much. Saying while we are focused on the corporate sector, and while we do want the growth, while we do want to want India to take off, what do we do about this agriculture? Does India continue to be an agrarian economy mostly, or do we move from
No,
there?
no. In terms of, I think his point, and I kind of want to, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Your point is the percentage of population versus the GDP debate, where 50 to 60% of people in agriculture contribute only 15%, may not be more than 20%. I don't think that should be brought into the overall structure of the economic debate at all, because you cannot have 50 crore to 60 crore people.
I don't think that was said in derogatory fashion,
No,
though.
it meant
it was
kind of
just
in
a
a statistical
Yeah,
manner.
yeah.
Yeah, it
It was probably
very
meant
hurting.
in an.
It was very hurting.
But to you, Dr. Prahlada, you feel that this statistics was not needed.
Not at all needed, because agriculture requires a separate budget. You have budget for railways, because that
So
produces
are you
money.
giving our media more time to talk 24/7 on the
They
agriculture
have to-
budget?
they have
Actually,
to-
I'll be happy if they talk
They
about
have to-
agriculture.
they have to-
Actually, the state of Karnataka had a
I
separate
will
agriculture
tell you.
budget.
But then if you ask them where on
because
what
of the
land,
because of the lopsided policies adopted by the governments from 1980s. I'm not talking about before that. Whatever we are enjoying today is because of the policies before 80s. What we are now going through is because of the policies adopted after 80s.
Yeah.
And we would not have had milk, we would not have had vegetables, we would not have had rice, everything would have been imported.
no, I mean,
If we have come out of that situation where we are not importing and we are ready to export
No,
also.
this
But
is-
no one is talking about not improving the efficiency of farm agriculture.
There are no measures.
no, and definitely, and we also should
No
explore. Yeah, we also should explore. The debate on agricultural land, but that's for another time. Yeah, that's for another time. I think we can also have the debate on how agricultural lands, should they be utilized for other industries or not. And we have some interesting points about that. But quickly, for 10 seconds, Pramod, what did you like about the budget?
The devolution of finances to the states, the Atal Innovation Fund, which enables a lot of entrepreneurs to kind of do public funded research, a lot of impetus on changing the current modalities of the PPP partnerships, which have not provided that kind of progress that is needed in road projects. There is about I think 5 or 6 schemes that tie in and give you special kind of tax concessions if you are promoting yoga or promoting Swachh Bharat, and this is on top of CSR.
No, not just that. I saw it's like all. If you donate also to these, like there's 100% tax benefit
benefit.
Yeah.
exemption or something.
Yeah.
So which is good. That's
Yeah.
what you should have. You should encourage that people donating towards
Yeah.
that. Plus, I love how since the last budget and in this budget they are promoting small scale entrepreneurs, because that is one thing. I mean, India was known. We had people doing a lot of small scale businesses and stuff, and why not take this to another level?
I think there is one thing as budget should be statement of intent by the government.
Right.
Budget does not need to tell us that how much color TV will cost, but as a statement of intent, I think there is willingness to reform $2 trillion economy. So that is what I think.
And if this was not done now, especially with respect to business, small and medium entrepreneurs, and lot of things that can be done at this stage so early in their tenure, they will not be able to do that probably a year and a half from now, especially when you have so many resources that will start accruing because of the auctions, because of indirect taxes, and all the good things that will come out. We'll start seeing that in 2 years.
We haven't reduced our subsidy bill. I think that will not happen anytime soon.
And
that is what gets our
one thing I want to ask you both
center
about,
rightist a little upset.
which I have a little disagreement with, because I'm not sure if India is ready to implement the social security model. I'm not sure. I sympathize with that model. Again, I am with Arun Jaitley on his intent or what he. Do you think India is ready?
Not yet.
I think
No,
not
I
yet.
don't
But
think
I
they're
think
ready.
Arun Jaitley was doing when he was writing the budget, or when his team was writing the budget, when they were giving a little sop to the corporate thing,
Come
they were trying to get
on,
this
come
thing. So
on.
it was a carrot and stick. So let's do this and let's do this.
Yeah, but we can't have too many sticks or too many carrots.
No,
So, I mean, I don't know.
but he is bang on the new generation.
Absolutely.
The generation
Yeah.
don't want to do jobs. They want to take risks. That risk has to be just like the US government does. You'll have to have a social security net eventually that will make them at least
See,
some
that's
sort
what I'm
of.
saying. I agree with his intent. I'm just saying that there are a lot of failed models of social security, and there are some cases where it has worked as well. And in America, how it works is you have to pay up to 40 quarters and then you start getting the benefits and stuff.
But this is not everyone gets this benefit. You have to understand that this social security that they have, suggested is only for extremely underprivileged and unwell people.
See, but I don't mind if the government has this fund set up for like emergency healthcare for, if it's a matter of life and death
But this
and
is
they need
going
it
to
to
be
be
direct
operated.
health transfer. This is going to be
Right.
direct
So
money transfer.
But again, there is too much ambiguity attached to this.
I think social security as in was a wrong term to use for it, and when we think about it, social security in terms of American thing, that's not what it was.
No,
I think it's just a fund for underprivileged and unwell.
See, personally, I think this is a budget keeping the future in mind,
Yeah.
probably for the next 10 years. But we also have to make sure that, social security for the next 10 years could also bring some recaptions.
Yeah.
And we
You know,
can't jump. We
also
can't
this-
jump from a savings economy to a spending economy. We should never do that. It should be somewhere in between where there is some security.
Absolutely.
At the same time, there's incentive for risk taking, which
Right.
is where we are headed. The demographic dividend. When we keep talking about that, that demography does not like sitting in a 35-year-old job. I mean, a job for 35 years, and at the end of that, get some pension. They don't
Even
like
Mr.
that.
Jaitley will agree that this budget is short on structural reform.
And so, if I was to tell you all, to wrap this up, to give marks out of 10, how much would you give Dr. Prahlada out of 10?
7.5.
What about you, Pramod?
9.5.
Mine would be about 8.5 to 9, depending on how it goes on social security.
I'm willing to give 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
Because
9.
I'm an entrepreneur, I need that kind of incentive to create jobs. I cannot sit
absolutely.
on the.
We have to talk about, quick, do we have time, Adit? I just want to talk 20 seconds. That I do sense a little feeling of unhappiness in middle class. I don't think there should be. But, with service tax and everything, do you think that there is a reason for middle class to be upset about the service tax being moved from 12% to 14%?
There could be short-term increase of cost in mobile cell phones and probably air travel and some
movie
other
tickets and stuff
movie
like
tickets
that.
and such, and going to the
Restaurants,
restaurants and all
yeah.
that. But at the same time, your middle class was going through a traumatic period of no growth at all. Now opportunities will start coming where they'll keep making more money. So in a
service
year's
tax should not
time,
hurt.
in a year's time,
It
the
should not
tax
hurt.
slab could be increased, and perhaps Dr. Swami's dream of getting the
rid of
middle class
income
away
tax.
from middle class can be accomplished only
Plus,
when
you
they
also
have
have to
money.
consider inflation is coming down as well.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Pramod, before we wrap up, what do you think about the new GDP formula?
I like it.
Like
I like it. Yeah, it should be revised. It should. Every country should have its own.
Absolutely, I need to. Yeah, every country should have its own independent line of thinking or
Yeah.
something. But
I'm just a little worried about,
do you think we are going to grow at 8% next year?
or double digits in a couple of years?
Yeah, possible.
No, it's possible.
But I will tell you this, it's not going to happen till manufacturing is revived. It is not going to double digit growth is not going to happen till manufacturing is revived. And I can put my money where
what particular sector in manufacturing are you referring to? When you talk about manufacturing is revived,
heavy manufacturing.
like heavy industries?
Yeah.
And are you proposing it in like states where there is like revenue deficit states or something, or it doesn't really matter?
It doesn't really matter where it is, this thing, but manufacturing has to be revived big time.
Once and for all, one thing has to be understood is, and going to Dr. Prahlad's point, is that manufacturing or the growth in manufacturing will never take away that humongous set of problems
It
we
won't,
have on
but
the
it will
rural
help.
side.
It
It
will
will
help.
probably alleviate and get more income.
I don't know about that.
And it will, because remember
Are
how
we
we
sure
used to
about
talk
that?
about jobless
What
growth
about
during UP
but then
years?
again, we and Pramod have
Manufacturing
talked
will
about
have
a
that.
lot about
No,
trade unionism also.
But you are failing to understand Modi's global vision. It ties into the Modi's global vision where we become a net exporter
I
rather
agree,
than an
I agree,
importer. And maybe our manufacturing is export oriented. It's not for this short term, you're looking at it as an employer of certain number of people, but you're looking at a lot of these Make in India
Absolutely.
initiatives that he's talking about.
Yeah, and I am completely in affirmation with the Make in India initiative. I think the Commerce Ministry is doing a great job in bringing that vision forward. But what I'm saying is, we need to give it time to see the results on the ground. We can't assume that it's going to revive the economy or push it to double-digit growth.
It's going to take 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
And
going to
although
take 2 years,
everyone
that's what I'm
says-
saying.
And although
Yeah.
everyone's, I don't know what his definition of Big Bang, and I reject it completely. I don't know what Big Bang is. But if there was something that were two huge factors in this budget that could be considered Big Bang, it would be black money law, I think, and Benami law. That's a big bang to my mind. And then Mudra Bank,
Right.
refinance bank, which will finance the institutions that provide loans to
And also the
SC,
gold,
the monetization
The
of
monetization of gold was
These
a
are
huge
big
one.
bang
Phenomenal.
points. These are big bang points.
No, and the definition of Big Bang also changes from time to time for the
Yeah.
people who espouse it. Anyways, that's a good time to sign off on the budget. We have more to talk about a little bit of the real budget and the Jammu and Kashmir government formation. We have a resident Jammu and Kashmir expert with us.
No experts.
I was not referring to you, Sunanda. I was talking about Pramod, but no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, she already assumed that I was referring to her. But no, we will definitely talk about all that in the next part. So guys, we also had the Suresh Prabhu, who's I think one of the finest ministers in the Narendra Modi government. He was an excellent power minister during Atalji's time, presenting his first railway budget. You have to factor in that it's only been about 3 months since he took over as the railway minister.
And he produced a fantabulous
Well, he
budget.
produced an India-centric budget, took it out of certain states of India, and actually focused on the country. But that we said the same thing about Sadananda Gowda as well last year. But we had some disagreements over that budget and stuff.
But for the longest time, the budget had been railway budget had only been Bengal and Bihar budget.
Bengal and Bihar.
It was Bengal and Bihar Railways. So finally we brought it, and here is it was almost like a CEO of railways.
See,
giving you
I
a
actually
vision
told,
of
no,
railways.
I was telling Pramod this, that Suresh Prabhu has to operate Indian Railways as a CEO right now because of the problems which it's facing and stuff like that. But there were, one best thing I liked is there were no random statistics thrown out. He in fact gave a vision. He put all the numbers in the annexure. People actually did not like it that in a budget you should talk about the numbers. But what is the use of talking about the numbers if you don't, you're not giving the vision?
Numbers. What is the big deal
Numbers
about
and
numbers?
names, numbers and names.
And you have to
Go on the
understand, this
railway
is
website
not
and
like
find
the
names.
finance ministry budget. The finance ministry does actually keep tabs on the costs and expenditures here. The railway minister also has to outline a whole vision.
But what were the budgets before that? Budgets before that would be, we started a train from here, we started a train from there, and we started, and those trains, half of those trains would never see light of the day. They would only be on the papers because you never had the infrastructure to start those trains.
No, and
but
parts
they
of
would
the
say that, Bengal got 3 trains, Bihar got 5 trains. That was what your Bihar budget was. That's
no, I mean,
shameful.
what I liked was some of it was that obviously he's going to pump in more investment into money. 8.5 lakh crores was the number quoted. A lot of people are saying, where will the money come from?
To be raised via public and private.
Yeah,
It's
public
not-
and private. Exactly. It's not going to be all government. It's going to be raised. So I liked that, he gave a direction on that. Another thing we have to
He did say that he's going to monetize some land.
assets.
Yeah.
And Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Defense have the most land in India. So, that land not only could be used for other things, could be used for railway research universities, which he
But
talked
there are other
about.
things like railway catering that could be privatized, for example.
And the
Actually,
largest,
people would
the
like it to be
large-
privatized.
the
I-
largest network that can be used for digital India, which is the optical fiber network that we
Yes.
already have.
Exactly.
So he's tying into the larger vision, not operating in his own cubicle. He is tying in the railway budget to the vision that
One thing I liked is that he was going to raise up the speed in 9 tracks up to 200 kilometers an hour. The only little problem with this is the track maintenance thing is still an issue. How are we maintaining? Are they safe or not? So I would hope that, there is a little bit of progress made on that as well.
They'll probably automate it. There are certain technologies that are
I'm
there.
going to say something a little controversial here. I have always said this, that Narendra Modi's legacy is in the hands of 2 people. Mr. Piyush Goyal and Mr. Suresh Prabhu. This is his vision. 24/7 power and energy and vision. What roads were for, what national highways were for Mr. Vajpayee, railway is for Narendra Modi. That is why this budget takes that much more importance. The vision, we need to know where railways are headed.
Thankfully, this time Mr. Prabhu is in the BJP. Last time he was the Minister of Power,
And the
actually,
only
during Vajpayee's government, where he wanted even Mr. Balasaheb Thackeray did not allow him to be there.
And Suresh Prabhu did acknowledge that he was quoting Nitin Gadkari, Piyush Goyal and Dharmendra Pradhan often on the problems and the issues they were
Because
facing.
they have to work together.
And the only national carrier that can do the government's bidding in transporting both goods and passengers is the railways.
Unlike Sunanda, I still believe there are a lot more torchbearers of Narendra Modi's legacy in the government. I'm not limited to the two.
That's why I'm going to be a little controversial here. My feeling is that these are just two this thing. But there's a question I have about this thing. Why are our freight rates so high? The highest in the world. Why are we not doing? And we have increased the freight rates again. There is no increase in passenger rail, which is fine. You could not have increased it, with all the.
But we also have the most profitable private freight carriers also in India. So would you want the private freight carriers to go out of business?
No, I wouldn't. But railways should also be making some money on the freight.
No, it is subsidizing the passengers' money with the freight money.
Right, they do make money. That is the only way they make money.
There is another thing also, that the passenger tickets are not increased and stuff. But you also have this Tatkal quota, and many people cannot book in advance, and they have to pay in Tatkal, which is basically an added fee. So they are paying more for their tickets. So this whole thing about passenger fares need to be increased or something is a very dicey debate. I am sure that in 5 years they need to be increased. You can't have like for 10 years passenger fares not being increased.
I'm just happy that we have a man like Suresh Prabhu at the helm of affairs, and it gives me a lot of confidence because we emerged from a scam which no one knew was a scam, but I think it was one of the biggest scams of UPA government, and that scam, which was done along with the media, was that Lalu Prasad Yadav was the finest railway minister I've ever seen.
Amazing. I was actually just going to say that.
I am not going to kid you. I remember when he introduced earthen cup in the railways, that kulhad, you drink tea in the kulhad. Everyone began to say it's a reform. I was like, how is this a reform? It's the biggest scam that, Lalu Prasad Yadav was considered the biggest or the brightest railway minister.
He auctioned off certain things.
I think Dinesh Trivedi was perhaps the brightest man to don that chair for a brief while, and then he made
for 2 days after the budget.
Mamta ji intervened.
And then unfortunately he couldn't initiate anything. But Prabhu has the political backing, and also he is aligning the vision with the kind of Make in India
and initiative. He has a good team. Dr. Vivek Debroy is in the railway.
One thing which I wanted, and hopefully, there are 4 more years, is some connectivity to the Northeast states as well.
Yeah.
That has already been talked about.
So that has been talked about, and I would like to see more connectivity. They shouldn't be just linked with like West Bengal and then have to go to India. There should be a lot more connectivity. But
my favorite thing is what I would, and I hope someone of importance is listening to this podcast. Please clean the railways and please clean the railway.
Yeah, I mean bio-toilets.
Bio-toilets have been
a lot of improvement.
Yes.
On the ground, there is a lot of improvement. So far as the Swachh Bharat
platforms continue to be dirty. Platforms, especially the bigger cities have dirtier platforms than the smaller cities.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
I don't know. See, I won't say about all bigger cities also. There are bigger cities where the platforms are quite clean. You're just talking about Delhi.
I'm talking about Delhi.
You see, that is the problem that our media also has. All they only focus about Delhi.
It takes time.
No, actually, I traveled through.
It has to be ingrained.
Absolutely, and Swachh Bharat and Digital India, 2 things. Implying Wi-Fi in trains and stuff, and cleaning up the stations.
Surveillance cameras for women. I think for security of women, that's a great point.
And making ladders friendly. That is a very small thing to learn.
Right.
But you know how difficult it is, even for ladies especially,
Yes.
or
To
for
get down
aged people,
from the train.
to get to the top bed. They get only top bed.
Absolutely. Actually,
And then
Suresh
there
Prabhu
is-
joked about it, that for ladies and people like me, it's very difficult to get into the top.
And there was another James Bondesque name, Operation 5 Minutes, that the
5
minute you go in on there, you can find
You can find
it in 5
unreserved,
minutes.
I think 4, 5 and 11 is what they were saying.
I know.
But I want to ask you, Sunanda, there were a lot of controversy that there was no mention about the bullet train. What do you feel about that? Do you think it's sustainable for India?
The studies are still to be done, and I know Mr. Modi's mind and heart is in it, and he does want to increase it.
one day.
But it will happen one day. I don't
Personally,
think-
my opinion is.
But there was no point of introducing bullet trains
Right.
here when
India
you
might not
wouldn't
have the
do
budget
anything.
for it right now,
We don't have
but
a budget for it
that
right
doesn't mean that you stop dreaming about it or you stop thinking about it. You can definitely work towards the vision of having.
But as far as I remember, in the last budget, that was the interim kind of budget that Mr. Jaitley produced, he did assign some 100 crores for the study of feasibility of bullet trains. So that is there. I don't think it is
yeah, studies and I think they're doing the survey and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And,
because such a big
feasibility.
project.
if it
feasibility
does
has to be
happen
studied.
as an Ahmedabadi, I would be very happy. It's going
It's
from
gonna start
Ahmedabad to
from
Bombay.
Ahmedabad, yeah. That would be nice.
Let's see. I mean, that's my mildly chauvinistic Ahmedabadi side kicking in. So, but anyways, that was about the rail budget. It was a very promising budget, both the financial budgets and the rail budget, and with two very capable, Arun Jaitley and Suresh Prabhu in the charge.
Execution is the key now.
Yeah, and that's the core competence of Narendra Modi
Yes.
as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and that's what it was seen, that he has a vision. Let's see how much he
But he has to talk
implementation.
more. He has to come out more. After 9 months, he came out swinging, silenced everybody. But unless he himself markets his own vision, nobody else will do it for him.
As I think Gurcharan Das said, Margaret Thatcher said that, Gurcharan Das quoted her that 80% of her time was spent in selling her vision and 20% was spent in implementing.
Yeah.
Let's hope Mr. Modi gets close
No,
to
he
the
has to sell
80%.
it. Yeah.
And you saw the 70 minutes, it was a spectacular speech.
He's
So-
the best salesman of himself.
And
No, you don't have any other salesman, but anywhere nearer to Modi.
But let's talk about the Jammu and Kashmir polls in the next part of the podcast.
Coming to Jammu and Kashmir debate, 10 years ago, if you would have told me two things, that Sunanda, you might become the Miss Universe or BJP will form a government in J&K, I would have actually thought that the prior would be true. I might become Miss Universe before BJP forms the government.
Miss or Mrs. Universe?
Well, that time, 10 years ago, I would have been Miss Universe.
Oh, is she a meteor?
But the point of this was to tell you that 10
Come on,
years
I had to throw in that jibe.
I know how difficult and how incomprehensible it was for BJP to be considered fighting an election in J&K like this, the way they did, and then be part of the alliance that is forming the government. As we talk right now, they are getting ready for the swearing-in ceremony of Mufti Muhammad Saeed. And Prime Minister Modi and everyone, the entire BJP brass is going to be there, and PDP will be there. Congress and National Conference have, of course, boycotted the whole thing, which I'm not surprised about. But what is interesting about this is truly earth-shattering. If anybody who has studied J&K politics closely, this is earth-shattering for PDP and BJP, which are literally opposite poles. And it's not cliche to say that. They truly are opposite poles of the spectrum. To come together and form a government is very, very interesting. When the mandate came and the results came, somebody asked me, in fact, I was interviewed, and somebody asked me, what do you think? And I think this was literally an hour after the verdict had come, and I said, my first thing was that BJP should sit in the opposition. There is no point. What is the point of being in such a volatile relationship? But over the period, I have come to understand that what choices does BJP have as a party? What do they have? You cannot have the state like Jammu and Kashmir be in permanent president's rule. People there do not like that. We have come to the point where we have a popular government after a long time, after a long stretch and pain and grief. We have come to the point where
elections
we have
in Jammu and
state.
Kashmir are not held like elections in any other state. This time also so many people were killed.
It's a security
You need to
nightmare.
have a 6-phase election for 87 assembly seats.
And
Just
after,
think about
it's not just monetary. You end up spending a lot of money. B, it's a security nightmare to have
Absolutely.
this thing. So re-elections was not an option. President's rule was definitely not an option.
No, and
so
if you-
then what
no, no,
was
no,
the
just-
option?
just-
And then if you would have allowed the other option, I will tell you what was. The other option was having non-BJP parties come together, Congress and National Conference and other small independents. That would have been very, very unfaithful to the mandate, because National Conference has been rejected. Congress has always been come through the back door, and now it has also been rejected. To let Congress and National Conference come would have been very untruthful to the mandate.
Not just that, BJP got an overwhelming mandate in
In
Jammu.
Jammu.
You are being very unfair to the people of Jammu if you are keeping them out of the government. You know, they have given BJP a representation, and you know, I mean, I'm not saying that BJP only represents Jammu and PDP only represents Kashmir.
But that is how the
that is the
mandate is,
mandate.
isn't it?
You know, that is how the mandate is.
System.
Plus, I believe that this was the most golden opportunity to BJP also to govern, you know, the state of Jammu and Kashmir.
But was the PDP Congress numbers adding up to form government?
No, they would have.
No,
to have,
they would have had to have support from, say, that engineer Rashid guy, Sajjad.
Some
And plus,
independents.
you know, the fact that Ghulam Nabi Azad comes and tells that, you know, what have you done for people of Jammu and Kashmir? This is the guy who 2 weeks ago gave a notice in writing apologizing for the hanging of Afzal Guru. Have you
Only
ever
because of
met,
his-
only for his Rajya Sabha seat?
Yeah.
Have you ever met, like, Rajya Sabha is like the Senate for our American listeners.
Yeah.
Have you met a senator who, you know, says that, oh, we killed a terrorist by mistake? I mean, just to get his own seat. I mean, this is
anti-national thing. It was
horrible.
And I think he called the BJP red rags and people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Arun Jaitley gave him a befitting reply in the Rajya Sabha. I mean, you know,
I urge people actually to watch this, to get the Kashmir history, political history 101 after 1947. I urge people to listen to those first 20 minutes of Arun Jaitley's
no, I think,
speech.
you know, the problem is when people talk about Jammu and Kashmir's history, people talk about the period from 1947 to 1950, 55, and then they start talking about what happened after the Rajiv, Sheikh Abdullah.
Yeah, 1987.
In between the elections of 1962, 1967, the thing with Ghulam Muhammad Shah, all that, people are not, I mean, it's not told when you're talking about Jammu and Kashmir.
The only free and fair elections, we also have to acknowledge that the only free and fair elections that happened in Jammu and Kashmir for the first time were under Morarji Desai and then Atalji.
Yeah.
So we have to honor the mandate. I know that there are a lot of people who are very unhappy with this alliance, and Kashmiri Pandits are one of them, and I happen to be a Kashmiri Pandit myself who has gone through the exodus and everything. But as I always say, my memory comes in the way, and I think of Mufti Muhammad Saeed and his, you know, his unscrupulous politics and his whole, you know, when he was the Home Minister and the Rubaya Saeed episode and everything. But then at the same time, what was the option for BJP? What was the pragmatic thing for BJP? It's easy for commentators to write 200 columns and say BJP and PDP should not come together. But give me one column to say what should have happened.
Plus, this is the right time when Pakistan is such an unattractive option, being independent by themselves and a bankrupt, government, potential government is also the most unattractive option.
And also, forming a government in Jammu and Kashmir is not just national implications, it's international implications.
Right.
The whole
Clearly.
world is watching,
Clearly.
and the fact that, you know, BJP got together with PDP is also, you know, quite interesting
ISIS.
on that.
Right, and then the control of the potential ideology of ISIS that could seep into Kashmir. There were some flags that were
Yes,
waved,
yes.
and you need a nationalistic support network that comes in from the center. And I think this is a pragmatic and a very optimistic move to move forward.
There is no need and there is no reason to do the grandstanding right now. That we are not going to be with Mufti Saeed, we are not going to be with somebody who is involved with the Rubaya Saeed episode or Anantnag episode. So this is not the time for all that. This is a time to move ahead. This is the time to make some conciliatory gestures.
So what do you think about Article 370 then? Because people are saying that BJP should, you know, what is BJP's position and all stuff like that.
I don't think BJP has given up on Article 370 and Ram Madhav has said it very clearly. He said, you know, we have Article 370, PDP has self-rule.
Yeah.
So we are keeping both of them where they are. We are finding a common ground. to
I
govern.
personally, my position on 370 is not changed. It must go, or it must be
There is
modified.
no doubt.
It
I
must
have
be
no doubt that it
significantly
has to
modified. It has to go, and you know, but the step has to be significantly modified, and then it has to go.
But to wait for it to go, it cannot go just like that.
Yeah,
It has
and BJP is not going to get rid of Article 370 by sitting in the opposition in Jammu and
Exactly.
Kashmir.
And it has to
Yeah.
build that
That is-
momentum for it. It has to build the narrative for it. And what is the best way to build the narrative other than being in the
So,
government?
you know, whatever happens, we wish them all the best.
No, as I
Tomorrow,
said, I have always been
when
saying
they
that with prayer in my heart, with hope in my heart and prayer in my lips, that I wish them best.
We just
and I
hope
that
that, I mean, it's going to be historic.
it's a historic.
And everything, I think, we always said, we've used the word watershed a lot after May 2014,
Yeah.
but I think this is one of the biggest
True
watershed moments.
But I do want to caution BJP on this. Mufti Saeed's politics, Mufti Saeed is not known for his scruples. Mufti Saeed is not somebody who is known as quote unquote imandar politician. He is somebody who will dump you 5 years, this thing, because in the 6th year he has to go to the election. So he is somebody who can do that. So BJP has to be very careful. They have to understand that they are allies, permanent allies for 6 years.
years.
There are no friendships in
And this is a
governance.
alliance for development, and that's what it
Yeah.
should stay as, because there's going
And
to be a lot of...
JNK BJP unit should be very, very alert of what is happening in the government. They should be involved. They should tell people why this alliance was needed. They should justify this alliance.
Again,
There's a
what
huge
we're coming
thing on
back,
Nirmal Singh.
communication. Sell your idea. Why you
Yes.
are? Why is
Yeah.
this step needed to be
I
taken?
think huge responsibility on Nirmal Singh, who is going to be the deputy chief minister, as we believe.
Monitored very efficiently.
Monitor it very efficiently. All the MLAs, 25. Don't forget that Jammu gave you all the seats. Jammu region gave you all the seats that were needed. Be very truthful to the mandate. Try to get as much as you can in the Kashmir state as well. And I think that's the only way to go about it.
And I mean, exactly. So I mean, we wish them the best, and it's interesting times for India. Let's hope Jammu and Kashmir gets its first BJP
Our
government,
best
and
wishes
it's
to
successful.
them. It's successful.
So, but before we end, and I mean, we've been way over time this time. It's been a long podcast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. As usual, you can follow us on Twitter at MYINDMAKERS. You can follow my personal account at ASK0704. You can follow Sunanda at SUNANDAVASHISHT, and you can follow Pramod at PBURAVALLI. So before we end, we wanted to also remember Avijit Roy, who was tragically hacked to death and in front of his wife. And
his wife was also injured grievously, and she's in the hospital right now. I'm told she's lost a finger. And
he was a blogger, just like us.
He was a blogger, just like us, a writer, just like us, a free thinker, just like us. So this is in no way anything less than Charlie Hebdo. Paris is, what happened in Bangladesh was equally violent and equally terrible for this thing, what happened in France. Somehow Dhaka does not ring the bell as much as Paris does, but this was closer to us, closer to the thing. At Mindmakers, we stand in solidarity with every free thinker, with every blogger, with every writer, and our heart goes out to the family of Avijit Roy.
Absolutely.
And we hope his wife recovers fast. And
whomsoever is doing, we don't, we stand in support, regardless of whether any media will cover it, not cover it, will choose to talk about one thing or not.
The silence in the media has been deafening, but it is, we remember Avijit Roy as a crusader for free speech.
With that, we'll sign off. We'll see you guys next week, same time. Thanks a lot for tuning in.